Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll hear inspirational stories of heart-centered leaders who have awakened to their higher purpose and taken that leap of faith to follow their heart and make an impact in the world. Get ready to be enlightened, empowered, and transformed with your host, Jennifer Spohr.
I'm really grateful and excited to welcome as a guest to our show today, Dr. Andrea Greiner. She also goes by Dr. G. She is a naturopathic doctor, acupuncturist, and creator of Ray of Light Meridian therapy, which is a form of energy healing combining meditation, light therapy, and the ability to access your acupuncture meridians with ray of light energy needles. As COVID came upon this planet, the first week we were told to stay home, she really held the question of how can I help the most people right now? Through her mentorship, she was encouraged to create a form of energy acupuncture that supported group healing sessions and to teach healers how to heal from anywhere. Now she has a certification program helping healers master this modality, learn how to hold group healing sessions, and build their businesses online. She has small businesses she is supporting and holds group healing sessions. Right now, she is in the process of having launched her new certification program with daily live videos teaching people the power of energy medicine, helping healers heal anywhere. Welcome, Andrea.
Yay! Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here.
I'm so grateful to have you. And I love what you're up to. And I have to say, I just experienced your work and it's truly amazing. It really is the power of energy healing and intention.
Thank you. Yeah, it was grateful. I'm grateful to have you there too. So we just came out of that and I've just been really surprised with where things have been going in general. So I wouldn't have thought I was going to jump into this energy healing world, but it really, with COVID, it really made me step into a place of being of highest service and teaching all of us that we can use energy medicine to help each of us heal. So it's been inspiring.
Absolutely. Yes. And, whether someone looks at it from a spiritual perspective or a scientific perspective, everything in our external environment also started out as energy, started out as light, started out as a thought. And I feel like that's been one of the blessings of what we've been experiencing, with COVID and going a lot more virtual, because it's showing us possibility, right? It's showing us expansion.
Yeah. It really pushes us into this place of, okay, well, I can't do it how I used to do it. So what can I do instead?
Exactly. Exactly. Andrea, I'd love to hear more about what, beyond COVID and the transition that you're making in your work, what inspired you to actually do the work that you're doing as a healer and a doctor?
Yeah. It's an interesting, to go, it's difficult sometimes to find like that one step. I think I kind of came into this world as a healer growing up. I used to think I was going to be a veterinarian. And I thought but then I thought about like having to put animals down and I was like, no, I can't do that. I didn't want that part. And so I always kind of knew I wanted to support people. And even on the playgrounds growing up, someone would hurt themselves and I'd run over and I'd make them laugh. And I just wanted people to be able to, heal and pick themselves up after something that's hard. So I've sort of always had that desire, that inkling that I was here for some type of healing, and that those kind of questions and steps ultimately led me into naturopathic school and led me into acupuncture school. And each time I would be faced with a decision of like, is this the next step? I would often get that intuitive hit like inside of my body, which I wouldn't have known then, but now after all the, learning the words, known that those hits were like, yes, this is where you're supposed to be. So it's kind of these like serendipitous sequence of events that have led me to where I am and has inspired me to always know that I was a healer meant to heal people in whatever form, and to continue to follow that like intuitive hit, that, you and I have spoken before this, and just really questioning how I could be of most service to the most people.
I love that. One of my friends would refer to those steps or that guidance as divine breadcrumbs.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I think I said something about like, it's sort of like a breadcrumb trail that you're following when I was just speaking with someone. So yeah, that's exactly.
Yes. Shout out to my friend Carol Campos. Her and her best friend Deb actually have a podcast called The Divine Breadcrumb, and they share all kinds of stories similar to that. So yeah, absolutely. It's a trail of signs and synchronicities. And what you say about listening to your intuition is so important, because there are so many people out there, when being faced with a decision, they are a lot more in their headspace versus, their intuitive heart space. Actually, what would you say is the easiest way to tell the difference between that intuitive guidance that you're getting and maybe something that might be coming from your mind?
Yeah. Knowing more and kind of further along in my spiritual practice, I would get these hits kind of in my chest. I would get like this knowing feeling in my, like exactly like your heart space and in my chest. And it was even in like college. I went to my college that I ended up going to, and I was like, oh, I'm supposed to be here. It's like this knowing, instead of like letting my brain take over and running the questions and the do's or do nots. And I would just always get that sense. And then it was like, okay, well, nothing's going to stop me now. Like I always followed it, because I was like, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. So really, each person might be different, but I always felt like I get that sense of like warmth in my chest and kind of that sense of being home. Like it's like those breadcrumbs are a sense of home. And I would say with more practice, my ultimate goal is to have that every day, that every day I have that sense of home and sense of like, yes, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
I love what you said about the sense of home. That is so true. And I feel like that's kind of a guideline that everyone could use, right? I feel like everybody understands what that means.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it takes a little bit. And so I would say, like, I guess a little bit of advice, if you do know that you're the overthinker, then like something that could ground you either walking outside barefoot is super simple. And then you could say, and even just having a question to, is this the right step for me? And if you'll get an answer pretty quick that, or you could say, show me in my body if this is the right step for me, or something where it kind of takes you out of your head. That's definitely been helpful for me.
That's fantastic advice. Thank you. Andrea, every experience in our lives shapes who we are. What experience in your life do you feel has been the most significant in shaping who you are today?
Well,
you laugh. I was like, ooh,
no, I know. I read this before, so I was a little prepared. Well, it's just so interesting, because I would never have said this like even a year ago. But the more I learn about energy healing and the more I learn about how we heal our past experiences, the ultimate moment was when I was probably between 3 and 4, and my parents got a divorce, or they were like separating. And that was really my first memory, but there's been so much of who I am that came out of that very difficult moment, and me being able to travel kind of back to that time and seeing how I am the person now because of that moment, and then healing and supporting that 3-year-old that was going through that moment. So it's that really big question, and like I said, I wouldn't have said it or known it until in the past like year of really diving into my healing journey, that moment really showed me and put me on the trajectory of where I am now.
Wow, I can really feel your energy and the emotion behind that. That feels like it was really significant for you. And thank you for sharing that, because a lot I found, I don't know if you agree, I found that in most cases with myself or with my clients, that a lot of the beliefs and conditioning and experiences that influence us into our adulthood come from a time in our lives when we're young children, because we're experiencing a lot of firsts.
Exactly. And that time is so impressionable. And in my own, being a leader of healers and a leader of leaders, it's pretty common when I say, for people to start to unravel their healing journey or their healing story, that most likely each person has had some type of significant experience between 3, 4, and 5. And when I say that, people are like, oh, yep, oh, yep, oh, yep, oh, yeah, I had this. And so it's pretty interesting to get that feedback as well. And really to look at it without judgment, so I don't look back and like, I'm not angry at the people involved. I just look back and say, how do I love and heal this girl that experienced that thing that, was big,
Absolutely. It's so important. I often refer to the different parts of ourselves as subpersonalities. It's so important to have every part of ourselves on the same page in terms of the vision that we have for our life, right? It's like if there's any part of ourselves that's unhealed, it can really hold us back from moving forward. And it's interesting because that part of ourselves actually believes that they're keeping us safe or that it's serving us in some way. So it's almost like we have to write new programming.
Yeah, exactly. And just recently, even just this week, I worked with a dear friend, and we had worked on this same scenario, but came at it from a different area. And I just saw another storyline that really I could put on every aspect of like the big transitions of my life, or even the time when I'm triggered the most. It comes from this moment. And so it's like, holy cow, and learning a new way to kind of rewrite the narrative and forgiving myself for whatever feelings I had of, it might be like, I'm not working, I'm working so hard and nobody's seeing me, or it was really interesting. So I think to look at healing and look at life and look at those triggers or traumas as a way of like interest, instead of like, oh, that's scary and I don't want to look at it. Because that's really like the healing happens when we're like, let's look at this and let's ask some questions and let's really, know that so much of who I am came from this moment. So also sending, it takes so much love to go into those really hard moments.
Absolutely. We are empowered to decide how we want to frame our perspective. I believe that, I didn't always believe this, right? I've done plenty of inner work over the years, but I believe that every one of our experiences not only serves a purpose, but it's a learning for us. And we can look at that, like you said, from a place of love versus a place of, ridicule or judgment.
Yeah.
Andrea, what advice do you have for others who are, at that crossroads in their life or feeling more of a sense of urgency to make an impact, especially right now with, everything that's been happening over the last few months?
Yeah, I would love to say that. I want to say something that you and I talked about the first time we had a talk, because I feel like it really would help you. Well, not you. It helps your peeps. I say your peeps, because you and I have a similar path. And I know a lot of your followers have that similar path of kind of being in a corporate environment and getting this calling to do the next thing, which goes right kind of into this. So if you're okay with me sharing a little bit of a story. So
no, I'd love it.
Okay, perfect. Because I was like, I just love that part when you and I connected, and it was a very similar story to your story. And that was that, as a naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist, I worked in an urgent care company back, several years ago. And I did it because they were hiring naturopaths and they were paying, 6 figures. And I was like, well, okay. And it was like a highly demanded position. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. And I was pregnant, but I was just like ready to, make 6 figures. And I got the job, and it was, it's urgent care. So it was wheelhouse medicine kind of. And then they decided, but I was good at it. Like I'm like a fast paced spirit being. So I like to move quickly, and I like kind of the excitement of I can see, 20 people a day. It's certainly not how I want to deliver my medicine for my whole life. So it was sort of just fed a part of my spirit. And, but then after being there for about 1.5 years, they cut all of the naturopaths' pay by $30,000, and they gave us 30 days notice. And the reason they did it was that they knew they could, well, they wouldn't have ever said this, but they knew they could cut our pay and we would all stay because it was still a decent salary. And once that happened, my husband had just said, no, you have so much to offer. I really think you should start, a business in the town that we lived in. And I was like, okay. But I was like, I think I was pregnant at that point, or right before. And so I went with it. I just was like, you know what? Yeah, I am, I'm not very good at tolerating injustices. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to take that calling and I'm going to start my own business, and ultimately left a 6-figure pay job to start my own business, to be able to create the life that I knew was there, but I hadn't directly made those, it was kind of scary. As leaving a place where, you sort of have this secure pay, but you've sacrificed a lot of what your soul or spirit is calling to you. So in that's kind of my advice, was I had something happen that then said, you know what, this isn't for me. And I really am ready to take this next step. And that was in 2018. And I've sort of just been taking the steps and listening to my intuitive breadcrumbs the rest of the way. And sometimes it's not always pretty, or, we think it's going to be A to B to C to D. And sometimes it's A to Z and then back to, there's that image of what entrepreneurial life is. And sometimes people are like, well, why don't you just get part-time, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I am not working for anybody else ever again, unless it's on my terms. So you kind of have to have the gumption and that connection and that knowing and confidence to just say, you know what, I know there's something bigger for me. And I know that it will come as I continue to take those steps that sometimes are really scary, but they're part of my journey, and that trust. So that's my story of advice, of sort of just really honing into your intuition and knowing that it might be scary, but the alternative for me was even scarier. I don't want to look back and say, I didn't do that thing or that calling or support as many people as I actually really am meant to support in this life, if that makes sense.
It all makes sense. And, that fear comes from the fact that many of us are conditioned to believe that we need to fear change, but our souls actually crave expansion.
Yeah.
And
it's like this blending. I'm like, yes, they do. And sometimes it's like, really, I have to do this. And they're like, yes.
Yes, because we're meant to grow. Fear is almost always an indicator of something that you actually need to dive into versus,
yeah,
and run away from. It's always just best to face it. And I've also found that, the only thing that ever holds us back from what we really want is us and our belief about what's possible.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I would agree 100%. Just even this week, an opportunity presented itself. And at first I was like, oh God, that sounds scary. And I'm like, I have to say yes. And so I just said yes. And, because the other conversation was like, well, what's the worst that happens? You could apply for this speaking position and they say no. And so once I had that conversation, it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to take that step and I don't have to worry about X, Y, and Z, so it's, it's really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's a no, it's still a learning, and it's bringing you one step closer, right? To
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like I would say sometimes the no's, or that, like, we are so trained that it has to be yes. And if it's not yes, then we are bad or something. I did something wrong, or, but a no can mean like it's a pivot. Like I've made big choices. Like I applied to a midwifery school without ever seeing a birth, but I didn't know what else to do. I was just taking a leap. And then once I didn't make it, then the next step appeared to me, but if I hadn't had made that step, maybe I would be working at a bakery for the rest of my life, or,
Right. I mean, every experience serves a purpose. We, often don't see that at the time, but that's where trust and faith come into play. It's not just us, on this journey by ourselves. It's God and our higher power, whatever that is for people that are listening. It's a process of co-creation.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And who sometimes I'll say, why did I do that? And spirit will tell me, well, you did that so you could meet this person. And now you've met that person, and now you're going to do that thing. And spirit is so flexible, and we were taught to be so like one direction. And I think that as we can be flexible and know that like life does, we were also sort of taught that you stay in one job for the rest of your life. And that's like kind of the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, because you grow as a person, and then you're like, well, that might not be interesting after 5 years. You accomplish the thing, and then you move on to the next thing. And so I think overcoming fear and being really flexible in that.
Absolutely. How can someone find you if they want to learn more about what you're up to and connect with you?
Yeah. So right now I'm spending most of my time helping healers heal anywhere. And so I have a Facebook group called Ray of Light Meridian Therapy, which is the name of the form of energy acupuncture I've created. So that's a great place to get energy tools and just meet me and see my Facebook lives and really connect in there. And then another great place is my website, which is www.drandreagreiner.org. And there you'll find ways to just learn more about, if you're a healer looking to make a next step and have more of an impact with, kind of call it like a bigger impact with less time and more financial freedom, then that website will really lead you on the path of getting connected with me and doing a breakthrough call and even experiencing this form that Jennifer just did. So I do group healing sessions for now. I have a few individual spots open, but primarily my focus is the certification for healers and spreading the word of, this energy healing form. And ultimately behind that form is that each person has their own ability to heal at a cellular level at any time. So as we evolve and grow over the next several years, just really informing so many people that you have the power to heal, because our healthcare systems will kind of shift and change. And so this is really at the bottom of that. So my Facebook group is great. My website is great. And I would really start there. And I do breakthrough calls. I have a great webinar, which all will be listed on my website. And there's a YouTube kind of building. It's slow. It's in infancy. So that will be developed as well.
That's awesome. And I, again, can attest, I highly recommend working with Andrea for anyone who is listening. Your work is just amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so grateful to have this form and inspire people. And it's already kind of spreading like wildfire, empowering people to heal and, connecting with people like Jennifer that have, great followings and are already sort of like know that they can change their path and you can step into your future at any time. And it might feel scary, and that means to go ahead and do it.
Yes, scary equals dive in.
Yeah, exactly. We'll make a t-shirt that says that.
It's all going to be okay. We promise. We've made it to the other side.
Exactly. Yeah. And you know what, on that note, always know that you are never alone in your journey. And I think that really helped me step and make some big steps, knowing that I was supported on a spiritual level. And you have a spirit posse, and you have, as you really step into that, you'll find a group of physical people that are there to support you too. So I think that's remembering that. Like, I felt so alone for quite a while. And once my spirit posse like showed up, I was like, man, it's crowded in here. So you're never alone. And so just remembering that.
Yes. And you can always reach out to us, because if it isn't us that can best, support you, then chances are we know someone who can.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to both of us, and we're supporting all of you guys out there and envisioning your success. I love to do that.
Yes, holding space for your success. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have absolutely enjoyed having you as a guest, and I'm so thankful and grateful for the fact that you're in this world and for the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm reflecting that back to you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you for listening to the Awake and On Purpose podcast. Please visit us and subscribe to the podcast at awakeandonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can connect with your higher purpose and take that leap of faith to make your impact in the world, visit us at jenniferspor.com. And while you're there, be sure to join our email list for exclusive offers and a weekly dose of inspiration.